everyone. Thanks for stopping by my channel. I'm Carla and my channel is Imagine That with Carla. Before we get started, yes, I do have a band-aid on my chin and my dermatologist saw this little spot on my chin. It's been there, can't get rid of it. So she decided to do a biopsy, and those of you who have had those know it's not a pretty sight under this band-aid. So that's the reason for the band-aid. Anyway, what I have for you today, I have 4 projects. I have 3 holiday and 1 that is something you could leave on your wall year round. In fact, I love it so much. I've already found the spot that I would put it in my home if it doesn't sell. Now, these projects, as I said, 3 are holiday, and 1 is something that you could use probably Thanksgiving or Christmas. I tried to kind of make it that way because, well, you'll see. And the other 2 that are holiday are, 1 is probably not that new, maybe, but I love it. I've never done it before and I've always wanted to try it. And the other one is a complete upcycle redo. And I hope you enjoy this. I hope you get some inspiration, and let's get started. And if you wouldn't mind, you could leave me a comment at the end to let me know which one you like the best. So our first project today is this gather wood word that I picked up. Oh gosh, I probably had this for a couple of years. And so this year I decided to take it outside. I'm going to spray it with some black primer plus paint by Bristolium. And then I'm going to take the Winter Botanist from Iron Orchid Designs 2025 holiday release. I'm just going to cut out different things that I think I might want to put on here to embellish it a little bit. Now, usually I think the word gather is associated with Thanksgiving, but I thought, you could also use that maybe with Christmas or just a winter gathering as far as that goes. Could be Thanksgiving and Christmas. So I'm cutting out little florals from the Winter Botanist, like pine cones and little holly leaves and little berries, and I'm just going to add these to this sign, and in hopes that someone will see it the way I see it, in that you could use it for Christmas and Thanksgiving. You could use it for both holidays. Here I've got this little bird. It's so sweet. This transfer pack is full of so many gorgeous little transfers that you can use. So here I'm going to take my transfer tool and just go over that. And I'm trying to make it so I'm not overlapping on the sides. I'd rather just have a nice clean cut. And the nice thing about these transfers are that you can take them and cut them into pieces and place them wherever you would like on your project. Here I'm taking the transfer tool and I'm transferring this little piece on, just a little bit of greenery with some berries. Then I'm going to go back and take another little piece that kind of goes across that cross on the T to give it a little more depth on that letter. So that goes together pretty well. Then I'm going to take another piece of it and pull it over here. Use my transfer tool. And here I'm taking some pine cones, but I don't need all of it, so I'm going to trim off some of the little sprigs there, the pine sprigs, and just kind of lay it up here where I think it will look nice. With my tool, I add that on, and here I'm taking a pine cone, and I can see where these can go both fall and winter. So that was what I'm trying to achieve here, to make something that you can use not just for one season, but for 2 seasons. Here I'm taking some little holly leaves and berries. I'm going to place these right over here by the E, transfer those on. And I usually use my finger to go back and kind of burnish those in to make sure they're on there nice and firm. And here's my little transfer tool, getting this one on. And this little flourish was off of the one with the bird over there, and I really like that. In fact, I went back through this Winter Botanist to see if there were any other flourishes, because I kind of like that kind of mixed in with some of those other embellishments that we have on this word. But I couldn't find any, so there was a little bit left on that one. I added that over there to the tail of the R. And I'm looking for something to go over there on the side of the G. So I'm looking through here, seeing what I can find. And what I find is, let's see. Nothing really there, so I find these pine cones. And I had these already cut out. I'm not exactly sure which IOD transfer packet those came from. Trying to think. Not real sure. Now here I'm taking some copper. This is like a copper wax. Now this I've had in my stash for quite some time, and I'm finding it's pretty dry, so it's kind of hard to smooth on there. But I persevere, and I keep going over those edges with this copper, and almost gives it a distressed look. But here you can see it kind of didn't smear very well, but I think it turned out okay. And there's kind of a place that I couldn't get it to really smooth out because the wax itself was pretty dry. But now what I'm going to do is, after I have that on, I'm going to take this nice soft cloth and I'm going to buff over that, and that really brings out the shine of that copper. And I think the copper really gives it that kind of fall winter look to it. So, you know, you're not just confined to a fall, but you've got the winter embellishments on there. Now you can kind of see where the transfers are. There's a little bit of white, but when I take this outside, we have to seal those transfers. So I sprayed it with a Rust-Oleum Primer Paint Clear spray, and it did kind of bring out the little pine sprigs on some of those that had the lot of clear transfer on there. Now this is a large piece, so it's kind of hard for me to keep it within the camera frame the whole time I'm recording this. I got this at Hobby Lobby, and it was at like a 75% off. And I thought, I picked this up, gosh, way last spring, I think. And I just thought, you know, I can do something with this. So I'm taking raw silk Fusion Mineral Paint, I'm giving it one coat, and as you can see, that covers not all the way. So I go back and I give it probably 1 to 2, maybe even 3 coats. Now I have a Prima Redesign, one of those fiber decoupage papers, and this I'm going to be cutting rather than trying to tear. And I really feel like, with my experience anyway, it's easier to try to find something to put these on that you can cut rather than try to tear. When I've tried to tear these, it's very difficult because this is a very nice, thick decoupage piece of paper. So what I did there was I wanted to saturate it really well with water, because when I used my decoupage medium, which is liquid patina by DIY, I wanted it to really be wet enough to absorb this liquid patina decoupage medium into it, to be able to hold it on, because this is a very thick, very nice piece of decoupage paper. And here I'm using the liquid patina, again, going in and very generously. adding a lot of this liquid patina. So I'm going to be sure that this thick fibrous decoupage paper will absorb all of that liquid patina and adhere. And really, I had no problems with any bubbles, any lines or creases in this at all. So here I am going back and going to finish up the top of this Santa decoupage paper from Prima Redesign. And I'm giving it a generous coat. And I'm going to take this that has been already sprayed and wet. I'm going to press this up with my hands, my fingers, and get this to lay just where I need it to lay. Going along those edges there to make sure I've got that. Now I'm going to go back with my liquid patina and give that an overcoat. And I am, again, using a generous amount to make sure that this will saturate through that fibrous paper. These colors are so rich on this decoupage paper. They're just beautiful. They're just, gorgeous. They just really stand out. And when you get this liquid patina on there, it just really adheres. And now I'm taking my dryer and trying to dry it just a little bit. Now, as you can see, I have a line up there. So I'm taking that Palmetto Dixie Belle paint. I'm taking Fusion Tapestry and Fusion Raw Silk. And I'm putting some little paint blobs on this little lid. And I'm going to be just taking a brush, mixing those together to try to get a way to bring that decoupage paper into the place that does not have decoupage paper, to blend it in to make it look like it is all one piece. So here I begin by blending and just, doing a little bit at a time and going over it. I'm trying not to make that line so obvious, but I have to go back and kind of redo that just a little bit because, I was kind of following that line at first. Here I'm just taking some chocolate by Dixie Belle. I decided I needed some darker hues in there, so I went with the chocolate Dixie Belle paint and started mixing that in with the other three paints that I had already chosen. Now here I'm going up around this casting that I had put on here. And the more I keep doing this, the more I keep thinking to myself, I don't know if this casting is really going to work with what I am wanting to do here. At first I thought it was going to be just, perfect. That's what I needed at the top of this arch. But as I started blending and putting more colors up in there and seeing how this was pulling toward the top of the arch, I started thinking, I'm not real sure if I need that arch. Now here what I'm doing is going around the inside edge of the arch to make it blend with the background that is on the Santa decoupage paper. So I come up here and I'm blending this all in. Have you ever tried this to blend it in? I mean, it's really kind of fun to take all these different colors and see what you can do to make it kind of, go with and blend with the bottom of your decoupage paper. It's fun. I enjoy doing this. So I just start kind of wisping on there a little bit. And then I decided, I'm going to have to add some darker down in there. I need to go below that line a little bit to make it kind of cohesive, to kind of come together. So I started going below that line, started taking some brush strokes to kind of pull that together to go kind of below and above that line. And I'm liking the way this is coming together. I think it looks pretty good. Now, as I get farther along, I'm thinking again, I'm not sure if I really like that casting on there. So what I decide to do is, after I'm blending more of this and getting more of this blended to the colors that I need, I'm thinking, this casting's gotta go. So what I did was I scraped it off, and I took one of my finger sanders and I started sanding that to get it smooth. After I did that, I took my dust buster that has this little thin snout on it that you can get all the dust up with, and I cleaned it up really well. And then I started filling all that in because I just didn't like that on top of there. And it's okay to change your mind right in the middle of what you're doing. And here I'm adding some lighter and darker and wispy little strokes with my brush. And I think it goes well because it almost looks to me like Santa might be walking against the wind. And this gives me a little bit, I think, of motion in the wind. Now this is something I had cast and painted for another project, and I changed my mind in the middle of that. So I had that in my stash, and I also had these two little holly leaves and berries at the bottom that I was going to put in the corners. So I used some, what do you call that? Thick and quick wood glue, I think. And then on the top I used Star Bond, the super glue, and the accelerator. So what I did was I put the Star Bond on the back of this little holly arch, and I kind of laid it on top of the arch and then picked it up to see where that Star Bond glue actually laid on there. And then I went back and added more in those same places because I knew it wasn't all over the back of this. Now I'm trying to get in place, situate myself where I can get this nice and even and straight on the arch. And when I do, I take the accelerator and I quickly lift that up and go across there really quick, because this stuff, I mean, it sticks really quick. And I got that on there, and this isn't coming off. So this is wonderful. I love the Star Bond glue and accelerator. And on the bottom, we've got that all done. And now what I'm going to do is take the Fusion mineral paint, that's tapestry, and I want to go around all the edges and fill in all those little lines around. I just thought it needed that to help it pop just a little bit. So when I get all of that completed, it is a finished project. And here, I don't know what's going on. There were no lights flickering when I videoed this. Nothing was flickering. I don't know where the flickering lights came from, and I hope it isn't too distracting for you. But this is the finished project, and let me know how you like this project and how you like that blending process. Now for this project, I'm taking this flower sifter. This is more of an older one, and I've always wanted to do something with one of these. So this is something that I think maybe you've probably seen before, but I have never done it, so I wanted to try it. I'm using Fusion Highlander mineral paint, and I'm not trying to give this a complete coverage. I want it to look worn, I want it to look old and aged, so I give it a light coat. And then I'm going with the Yuletide transfer that came out probably last year, I think. And before I use that transfer that I picked from there, I'm going to use this silver one from Figgy and Flourish that came out this year with IOD's 2025 holiday release. It was a silver and gold packet, and this one, since it was silver on the back, I thought I would use the word Christmas in silver and go ahead and transfer that to the front of this flower sifter. Now here, when I put this on, I'm just trying to use the corner of my transfer tool and just hit the places that are gilded to go on to this flower sifter. You don't need to take your transfer tool and rub over the entire thing, or you might get some silver on there that you really aren't needing to get on there. And I always fold it back to see how it's adhering, and then I know what I need to go back over or place it back on. But this one went on really well, so I just finished transferring that, and when it came off, I was ready to take the little transfer that I had pulled from Yuletide and apply that underneath. I always take my fingers to press in those gilded transfers because I don't like to rub on them because sometimes it pulls back. Now on this one, it's going on very nicely. This is the Yuletide from IOD, and after I get that on there, I am ready to proceed with my plan. My plan for this was to make a floral arrangement. So I had this little floral square and I cut it apart and I made a shape that I thought would fit down inside here. And I'm not using any hot glue. I don't want to put any hot glue inside the sifter to get it all in those little wire mesh plates in there. So this little sprig I found at Walmart. It is so neat. I love the eucalyptus in there with the red berries. And then I just started pulling from my stash different things, laying them out, trying to figure out what I might want to put in this little arrangement. Now I'm going to be using this Fusion Aging Wax, and I'm going to just age this little Christmas looking spoon that I've had in my stash from my craft fair days. And I'm just aging that a little bit, laying that aside. Now these little sprigs, gosh, I bought a garland. It was, I want to say, 5 at least years ago at the end of the season sale. And this is, you know, the kind of garland it was, and I have totally used this garland to cut off sprigs and make little Christmas florals. I just love the way these little sprigs are formed, and they look so real that that's what I use this garland for. And so here I'm just attaching different sprigs into the top of my little flower sifter, and I'm just going to arrange those and get those the way that I want them to look, the way that I think they are going to fit well in this little arrangement. So I'm adding one up here, and I'm not using glue because I thought if anybody wanted to take this out and do something different at Christmas with it, they could. Although I really like these little green sprigs in there. After I get that the way I want it, now I'm thinking about what else can I put in there. I had these cinnamon sticks in my stash, so I'm going to add some cinnamon sticks in there. And this one, I think, broke off when I tried to poke it in there. It's kind of thick at the bottom, and I was pushing really hard. So I think a little bit of that one popped off at the top. And after we have that on there, I'm taking some pine cones. I'm not ready to attach those yet. And I've got this really cute vintage star cookie cutter. So I think that would look good on the handles. So I'm taking some twine. I'm going to thread it through the little handle on the cookie cutter. And after I have that threaded through, I'm thinking I might want these little pine cone sprigs, which I picked up at Hobby Lobby, and I've had those in my stash. And I'm going to wrap that around and add that to my little star. Then I'm going to use some twine, tie that onto the handle. And after I get that secured on to the handle, I'm thinking, what else could I put on there? And then I just added the spoon, I think, and I'm adding some candy canes I had in my stash. Now I wanted to age these because they are pretty white, and I tried the aging wax, but it didn't work. They're just too slick. It just would not absorb into that. And after I was looking at the side, I thought, ooh, I have these rusty bells. I think I'll take a couple of rusty bells. I'm going to thread some twine through that. And I'm going to knot those on, each one of those. And after I get those knotted on and I trim off the little pieces that are hanging after I've knotted those on, I'm going to take those bells, I'm going to wrap them around the handle where that little cookie cutter and that little pine cone is, and I'm going to have that kind of hanging down the side of the handle with that cookie cutter. And I think that looks really cute. I'm really liking the way this is coming together. But what I want to do now is I found this little Christmas tree also in my stash. So I'm going to take some of the Fusion Aging Wax. I'm going to go over this little tree with that wax. And after I get it kind of aged and look the way I want it to, I'm going to take a popsicle stick and I'm going to age that popsicle stick on one side, and then I'm going to take my hot glue gun and attach that popsicle stick to the back of that tree. I want to leave enough that I can pop it down into that floral foam and still have the tree poking out enough to be able to see it. So when that's attached and on, I simply take that, attach that to the top, and what I'm going to do next is take my little finger sander, and I want to kind of distress this. So I'm going to go over these little rings, I'm going to go over that silver and make it look, aged, like some of it's worn off, going over that little holly transfer. And when I get that kind of aged the way I like it to look, I'm going to then take some Fusion Aging Wax and I'm going to apply that to this little flower sifter, and it just gives it a really kind of aged look with the darkness of that going into some of those places where I have taken my sander and going over it. Now it's not going to give you a whole lot of dark aging because it is a slick surface and it is silver underneath, but I do like the way this turned out. I'm just really excited about it. I think it's really cute. And like I said, this is probably something you've seen before, but something that I've never tried to make before. So I'm glad I tried it, and I love the way this turned out. Now, for project number 4, this is a vintage frame that I thrifted, and I found this actually at an estate sale, and it was back in one of the sheds out back. So don't forget to go to the sheds out back. You may find, something that you weren't expecting. This is a gem as far as I'm concerned. Look at how dried out this frame is. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take just a wet cloth, clean it off really well. Now I'm taking DIY's Dark and Decrepit liquid patina look at how this frame comes to life. I mean, it's just amazing the way this goes on. And remember, just look at the difference there on how dried out it is and how this just brings it into that rich dark brown that you know, this vintage frame needs to have restored. So this was a lot of fun for me to restore this and just see how amazing it looked after this restoration. Now this is some linen that was around the frame, but because it was kind of stained in places, I went ahead and put the dark and decrepit on it. I'm not sure if you would really need to, but I just did. And after I had it completely covered with a dark and decrepit, I went over it with a buffing cloth and kind of buffed it off, and just look at how that looks. I mean, to me, it's just gorgeous. And now I'm taking Fusion's Black Coal Mineral Paint, and I'm going to go over all of that linen with that black paint. And to me, it just, you know, makes it pop. It just brings it out. I just love the way that makes this look. Doesn't that look nice? I mean, look at that. Just look at that. Oh, I love the frame. It's so rich looking to me. And then the little picture that was in it was on a nice board. So I had this swan canvas that I had purchased from Temu 3 or 4 years ago, and I wanted to place that in the frame. So I wanted to see how it would best fit. So I took that piece of board rather that had the picture on it, laid it on top of my back of the swan canvas. I traced around it and cut it out, and now I'm going to place some double-sided 6-inch tape on the back of this picture. And this tape, if you've seen me use it before, once it's stuck, it's stuck. So I'm not even going to try to get it off of that paper there. And I'm going to add 2 rows of it. And after I get 2 rows on, I'm going to trim it off and trim around it. Go ahead and get that excess off of there. There I went to my X-Acto knife and just going to try to cut through that, peel that off. And now I'm just going to remove the backing from the board. I want to make sure it's pressed down. Just remove that backing, peel it off. And then I'll take the second one and peel that one off as well. And after I have those peeled off, I'm simply going to take that and place it where I had traced around the canvas to where I wanted this board to fit. I'm going to press it on there so that is adhered. Now I'm going to trim off a little bit of this, but my recollection tells me that this picture, this board I'm using, it was just very, very close to fitting into that frame. In fact, you know, it could move just a little bit and be off. So I left a little bit of the canvas around that board so it would take up the slack and it wouldn't fall through, because I was afraid it might be just a little bit too small, and I didn't want to risk the chance of that swan canvas falling through. So after I trimmed that off, I simply placed it in the frame on the back and tried to see just how well that fit, and it seemed to go in there really well. So now I'm taking my oh gosh, what do you call this? Picture stapler? I'm not sure, but I love it. It works so well trying to get the backings back on. As you can see, it's a little bit short, but these little tabs hold it in. Then I took some butcher grade, builder's grade butcher paper and measured it out to the size I would want to go onto the back of this. But before we put that on the back, I went around the inside of that wood by the swan with gold wax, kind of like a rub and buff, and I just went around the whole thing with that, and then I'm going to buff it off, give it a little bit more sheen after you buff that off with a cloth. And a little bit of it got up on the linen part where I had painted it black, but that was no issue. All I had to do is go back, take a little bit of that Fusion black coal paint, touch that up, and that was not an issue at all. Here I'm just taking that builder's grade butcher paper that I had cut out. I'm taking my stapler and I'm just stapling that on the back. And I do add some hanging wire to the back, and this picture is complete. I love this picture. I think it is so rich looking. The frame to me just turned out beautifully. I mean, it just, I don't know, that dark and decrepit DIY liquid patina just brought the life back into this picture. And I love the swan too. I think the swans are kind of popular right now, and I think it just turned out great. What do you think? So, what did you think of this video? Did you think that that gather word, the way I went ahead and put all those transfers on there, do you think that could be used for Thanksgiving and Christmas? And what about the Prima redesign decoupage, that fibrous thick decoupage paper? The way I blended that up into the space that the decoupage paper did not go. What did you think of that? Have you ever tried to do that? It's really kind of fun to try to do that. And then there's the flour sifter. That was something that I've seen other people decorate and do, and I've always wanted to do that. I've done kitchen utensils with the muffin tin and a cheese grater, but I've never done a flour sifter, and I kind of like the way that turned out. So what did you think of that? And also for the swan, that vintage frame that I found, like I said, at an estate sale in a back shed. It was so dried out and, you know, just needed new life. And that Dark and Decrepit by DIY simply gave it new life. I mean, I love the way that frame turned out. It looks so rich. And the swan picture, I think swans were kind of popular. They're getting more trendy now, so I'm hoping that will do well. But if it doesn't, I have a place for that in my home because I really like that frame and I like the swan. So tell me what you thought about this video, and if you have not had a chance to subscribe to my channel, I would appreciate it if you would like to subscribe. I will keep more videos coming. I'm working on them now, and I hope you enjoy and get some inspiration and maybe see some things that you might want to try. And thanks for watching, and until next time, bye-bye.